Hi, welcome everybody to your evening webinar for secondary school students, parents and carers as well. Just very quickly about myself, I used to work in secondary school. I did do for about 14 years, and during that time I studied to become a dyslexia specialist tutor. I can assess for access arrangements and I can now diagnose dyslexia as well. Just to find out who our audience is, if you can just let us know, are you an educator, a parent or carer, or are you both? Are you a student, or are you in the other camp? And while you're doing that, I'll just go through what we're going to talk about today. We will, of course, go through and have a recap of what dyslexia is. If you've seen the webinars before, you'll notice that I do generally go through what dyslexia is, but I've kind of just recapped it for this evening. We'll talk about how the best ways to communicate with the SENCO, and we'll look as well at EHCPs and the rights of the child. And of course, we'll also look at how we can support our dyslexic learners to demonstrate their knowledge other than writing in a text. So if I'm just wondering if we got a result. Yes, we've got 37% educator, 42% parent or carer, both is 14%. No students on this evening, and the other is 8%. Okay. Welcome everybody. And what we're going to talk about is just a very quick overview again of what dyslexia is. It's very well documented, isn't it, with child development studies. We know that the more that we interact with our children from birth, the more that the brain develops. And so what I want to look at briefly is the differences between the dyslexic and non-dyslexic brains. When we are learning to read, we are using these three areas of the brain. They're called the Broca's area, the parieto-temporal area, and the occipito-temporal area. And we also use the cerebellum. So the cerebellum is required. It kind of wakes up when we are learning a new skill, and that can be for any skill at all. So let's say the child is a toddler at the time and they're learning to walk. The brain has all of this activity and when they're developing these new skills. The cerebellum recognizes that there is activity in the brain and it starts to build the neural pathways. So if you imagine it a bit like a bridge on both sides, eventually they will meet in the middle, they will fuse and they will become completely automatic. And so we don't have to think about how to walk anymore. And it's very similar to lots of other skills. If you're learning to drive a car, for example, or learning to ride a bike or learning new dance steps, the cerebellum recognizes that it's learning these new skills, it builds the neural pathways. When we think about our dyslexic learners, we know that this left side of the brain is less active with dyslexic learners than it is with non-dyslexic learners. Very often they have more activity on the right side of the brain. So when they start to learn to read, we know that at the very beginning, it's very multisensory. They use a lot of their modalities and their senses. And because there's lots of activity, the cerebellum can build the neural pathways and that skill can become completely automatic. However, for our dyslexic learners, there is less activity on the left side of the brain. Cerebellum doesn't recognize that it's learning to read and write. And so the neural pathways are not built and they're not completely fused. And so consequently, what happens is that skill, that literacy skill, it's very, very difficult for them. It's not completely seamless. So we know that, as the child goes through nursery, they start to move further up the school, and all of this multisensory way of teaching kind of is reduced, and they're expected to sit quietly at a desk and just sit and watch or just sit and listen. And because we reduce that multisensory way of teaching with those literacy skills, that gap starts. And so to be able to help them with their literacy skills, with dyslexic learners in particular, we need to continue that multisensory way of teaching. And I'm talking things like auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and doing. And so we need to continue that. As the children start to go through and they've learned to read, then they have to read to learn. And that's what happens when they get up to secondary school. If they've not been able to decode fluently and efficiently at the learning to read stage, they're not going to be able to decode efficiently to read to learn. And so they might have this real tricky difficulty with their literacy skills. It might be that some of the learners have been able to kind of get on a little bit and try and mask it somewhat. And so it's not until they start to read to learn, we can't always see how much they are struggling until they get up to secondary school. So what we need to do is to introduce a multisensory way of teaching so that the cerebellum can trigger and build the neural pathways really well. So when we have a look at this fMRI scan, this demonstrates very clearly that on the left side of the brain, for those who are typical readers, they have these 3 areas of the brain that there's enough activity there for the cerebellum to build the neural pathways. And our dyslexic learners, however, are starting to struggle. There is more activity on the right side of the brain. They also have a challenge with their memory shelf. We all have a memory shelf at the front of our brains. And those who are non-dyslexic can typically hold on to maybe about 7 or 8 books on their shelf. If you add a new one, that's when it starts to become overloaded and things start to slide off. Dyslexics, however, may only be able to hold on to maybe 2 or 3 books until they have that sensation of being overloaded. Different books have different weights, so imagery is a lot lighter on the bookshelf. And I'm thinking of things like mind maps, aerial views of information, um, illustrations that trigger and how to recall some information. And so what they really thrive on is that imagery to be able to make the connections of what it is that they're learning. Stress can be a heavy book, and just one of those can just wipe everything off. I used to see that in secondary school when I was supporting some of my learners. I would be able to explain what the teacher was wanting to teach, and then if they were asked a direct question from the teacher, all eyes are on them. Teachers expecting them to find an answer super fast and they can't find it. And so that stress just wipes all of that information that they've had on their memory shelf completely off. And so they tell me that they just can't think fast enough. It's just too much. So that's the memory shelf. They also have a difficulty with information processing. So we have our left and right side of the brain, and we all have our filing cabinet of knowledge here behind our left ear. If you were left brain dominant, you can find that information in your filing cabinet of knowledge super fast in milliseconds. And it's very much like driving down a motorway without any other cars on there. You can get there super fast and find it really, really easily. If you're right brain dominant, however, you have a longer journey to take. And so it's very much like driving down the scenic route. And it's not to say you're not going to find that information in their filing cabinet of knowledge. It just might take a little bit of time. And so that they need to have that processing time. In addition to that, their filing system might not be the same as everybody else's. They may file things as images rather than the connections to what what it is that they are being taught. So if you imagine a traditional library that is alphabetized. Everything is in order according to the alphabet. For those with a different filing system, it's almost like all the books are color coded. And so they are in there, it's just in a different position. So sometimes they find it because they're taking the scenic route, but also they can't find it because the filing system isn't the same as everybody else's. So there's the information processing is also tricky for them. But it's not to say that being left brain dominant is better than being right brain dominant. There is lots of benefits to being right brain dominant. They have these unique benefits that's very often associated with creativity and holistic thinking. They tend to excel in very creative tasks like art or music, very often in inventive and creative writing as well. They can come up with ideas outside of the box with lots of innovative solutions. Right brain thinkers sometimes have a very good intuition. They often rely on their gut feelings, and that can help them with their decision making if they need to do that quickly. They have a very good emotional awareness. Many dyslexics are very empathetic, very good at reading non-verbal clues, and very good at caring. So there's a lot of carers who are dyslexic. Visual spatial skills. This includes the ability to recognize patterns and shapes with spatial relationships. Very good in fields like architecture, engineering, sports even as well. Very good at holistic thinking. Those right brain people tend to see that bigger picture and understand how different parts fit together. Very advantageous in strategic planning and complex problem solving as well. And often they're very flexible. They are very open to new experiences. It can lead them to becoming dynamic and flexible. So we've talked about what challenges that might come with dyslexia, but it's also very, very important to understand what the benefits, these unique benefits are to being dyslexic and being able to tap into what it is that they're good at. It's very important to, yes, focus on what they're struggling with, but it's also very and equally important to focus on what they are very good at so that they can have that equal ability of being successful in whichever niche area that they feel that they fall into. In secondary school, as with all schools, you will have a SENCO, a special educational needs coordinator. And it's important to be able to build a very good relationship with the SENCO, and it needs to be coming from both sides. When we think about that communication, it's really crucial for ensuring that your child receives the correct support that they need. And so what I've done is I've kind of put in some best practices to consider. It's important to schedule regular meetings so that the development of your child and the successes and any challenges are always at the forefront. So arrange regular meetings to discuss your child's progress, any kind of challenges that they are having. It might be that the school don't see that, but you see that at home. Any updates and consistent communication really helps everyone keep on the same page, really. When you are meeting, be prepared. When you go to meetings, if you have specific questions, write them down. Any concerns, any relevant documentation that that you may need, make sure that you take that with you. And these can include reports from things like therapists or any kind of previous assessment reports, or it might be examples of your child's work. Anything like that, make sure that you take it with you and be prepared. It's important to stay positive and collaborative. Approach these conversations with a very positive mindset. Acknowledge the efforts of the SENCO and the teachers. Work together to find solutions. I know from personal experience that is not always easy. However, it's important for everybody, for both sides, to be able to have a positive mindset at the outset. If you are communicating, make sure you use clear and concise communications. If you've got multiple concerns, it might be that you want to consider prioritizing them to make sure that the most crucial issues are addressed first. When I talk about communication, things like, if you promise that you're going to call back at a certain time, do that. And that goes for Senkos as well. It's frustrating for everybody, isn't it, on both sides, if somebody doesn't follow up and say that they're going to call when they say they do. Document everything, making sure that you keep a record of all communications for both the parents and the Senko, including things like emails, meeting notes, action plans. What I would suggest is to get a lever arch file, and anything that the newest thing needs to stay on top so that everything is in order. Keep things like sticky notes or notepads or things like that you have maybe scribbled a note on, the name and date of a phone call of the person that you spoke to, and so on. All of these things need to be kept in order. And then follow up as well. After you've had your meetings, follow up with an email summarising the key points that have been discussed and any agreed actions that you might have come to. And this makes sure that there is clarity and accountability as well. So not just for the parents, but for the teaching staff as well. Be honest and open. Share your child's strengths and the challenges. So, I will always say it, you always need to focus equally on the strengths of the child as well as the challenges. So the more the information that the Senko has, the better that they can support your child. And seek additional support if you need it. Don't hesitate to ask for advice from other professionals. It might be other therapists in the area, any other teachers, any specialists in the area. If you need to, get in touch with your local dyslexia association, and start a relationship with that group. But by maintaining that open and honest and regular communication, you can actually build a very strong partnership with the Senko and the school and the teaching staff to help your child's educational journey. So it's my message is to have open communication that is best for everybody. So EHCPs, educational health care plans, and the rights of the child. So an educational health and care plan, it is a legally binding document designed to support children and young people up to the age of 25 who have special educational needs and disabilities. And what I've done is I have found the link that you might be interested in, and what I will do is this is what it looks like. And if it is possible, I think what I'll do, Claudia, is I'll put that in the chat after we have finished. But this is the government website that you might be interested in, Children with Special Educational Needs and Disabilities. And all of that information is on there. When we consider the benefits of an EHCP, there will be that personalised support. We tailor it to the child's unique needs and making sure that they receive that appropriate resources and interventions as well. It will give you legal protection. The local authority is legally obliged to provide the support that is outlined in the EHCP, and it helps to empower families and children to take an active role in the planning and the review process, making sure that their voices are heard as well. So the rights of the child, then, they have a right to an assessment. Parents, teachers, or the young person themselves, if they're aged 16 to 25, can request an EHCP needs assessment from the local authority if they believe additional support is needed. They have a right to participation. The child's views, their wishes and feelings need to be considered through the EHCP. And so it makes sure that the plan is tailored to their specific needs, as well as their aspirations as well. They have a right to education, and the EHCP must detail the educational support, and it might be, for example, one-to-one tuition or specialist teaching to make sure that your child can access education on an equal footing, the same as their peers as well. They have a right to health and social care, and it also includes necessary health and social care provisions, making sure that there is that holistic approach to the child's development and the well-being as well. And a right to review. EHCPs are reviewed annually to make sure that they remain relevant and effective. There's no point in following advice that was given 3 or 4 years previously. Your child might be getting ready for their exams, for example. So they need to be relevant and effective. The parents and the child have the right to be involved in these reviews and to request changes if needed. Remember, the child is going to develop. For example, it could be that they have requested blue paper, for example. As the child develops, that colour might change if they have that difficulty with experiencing that visual stress. And it's not always well known that as the child grows, the colours might change as well. So those kind of reviews is important to take into account as well. And also the right to appeal. If parents or the young person disagree with the local authority's decisions regarding that EHCP, they have the right to appeal to the Special Educational Needs and Disability Tribunal. And it's not to say that you should storm into a school demanding your rights, and nobody gets anywhere by making demands, but do your research and consider what the school is physically able to provide. So, for example, they might not be able to provide specialist intervention if they don't have the appropriately qualified staff. So, yes, it's all a recommendation, but you've got to also take into account what the school can physically offer your child. If you think that the school needs more dyslexia awareness training, then put that to the school. So just to bring up and refresh the knowledge that all of the teaching staff might need for dyslexia, for example. And sometimes you are a warrior parent. You have to be a warrior parent sometimes. And while some interventions might take time to implement, your child still needs support with things like behaviour or academic success. And it's a real balance between being supportive and being pushy. And we have to remember that your child with dyslexia has a learning difference. They have a different way of learning. And they may not be aware that your child needs that multisensory approach to learning. They need to use their auditory, their visual, and their kinesthetic way of learning. It might be that, they just need to stand up and be able to, move from foot to foot to be able to digest information. All of these different things. We've got to take into account the different ways of learning for our dyslexic learners. So this kind of takes me into understanding dyslexic behaviours. The layers of behaviour, oh, thank you for that little love heart, associated with dyslexia can really help in addressing and managing these kind of behaviours effectively. So these are some of the things that teaching staff need to be aware of, and try not to look at the surface behaviour, but instead look at the root cause. So avoidance. Children with dyslexia will often use avoidance as a coping mechanism. They might avoid things like reading, spelling, writing tasks, because they find them too challenging and they fear that failure, or they fear the embarrassment of not being able to complete it the same as everybody else. So they may try to avoid. They may have that resignation. Over time, some children might become resigned to their difficulties. It's called learned helplessness. They might lose motivation for academic pursuits. They might feel that no matter what they do or how hard they try, they're just never going to succeed. And it can lead to a lack of engagement and that effort in school, unless it's something that they're very good at. So it might be that they're very good at sports, they're very good at in the wood tech area, they're very good at the geography field trip. So unless they know that they're able to achieve in something, it might be that they try to resign them. Well, they will resign themselves to the fact that they just can't do it. Depending on the personalities of the individuals, they might try to act out. They do that to divert attention from their struggles. I know one learner in particular, he was very, very good at engaging in conversation in the learning section of the lesson. And he was very, very good at continuing and continuing and continuing the discussions because they were very good discussions. But what he was doing was he knew that there was only an hour for the lesson. And so there was less and less and less time for the actual work for in during that lesson. And so it might be that they divert attention from the actual physical writing task that they've been given to do. So it might be that that is one strategy for them. It might include disruptive behavior. It might include things like telling jokes, being the class clown, distracting other students. And it's really a way to avoid tasks that is going to highlight the challenges that they have. It might be as soon as it's like, right, come on, it's time to do some work. Miss, can I go to the toilet? All of these different things they try to, act out and get out of the actual task at hand. They may have an emotional impact. It can significantly affect a child's self-esteem and confidence. Not to say that it always does, it doesn't, but it can. And they might feel really frustrated, they might feel anxious or even depressed due to the struggles that they're having with reading and writing because everybody else seems to find it so easy and I can't. Okay. And this emotional toll can really manifest in varying behaviors. And it might be either withdrawal or on the other end of the scale, it could be aggression. So bear that in mind with the behaviors that you might see on the outside. There might be family dynamics. The home environment actually really plays a crucial role. If there is family stress, or if there is a lack of understanding, or inconsistent support, it can really exacerbate these behavioural issues. Being called lazy is really upsetting when all they do is try hard. Okay. Um, it, they do have to put in so much more effort to have just a small amount of output. And if you see that and call them lazy, when actually they really are trying really, really hard, it's no wonder they start to become frustrated. Conversely, if you have a supportive and understanding family, it can help to mitigate those behaviours. If you really all understand the reasons what why they are finding it difficult, and you put in the other support strategies, it might be that you really, really help to support them to achieve. And so it's for both sides, it's really important to get it right. The school environment. So the school setting, including the relationships with teachers, their peers, can have an impact on their behaviour. A lack of support or understanding at school can really lead to those increased behavioural issues, whilst On the other side, if you have that very supportive school environment, you can help to manage them. They can start to then understand themselves, find their own strategies and a way to find themselves, to support themselves and start to become very independent. So if we address these layers, these parents, professionals, the educators, you can develop much more effective strategies to support children with dyslexia and to help them to improve their behaviour. And so when you are supporting anybody with dyslexia, or if your child is dyslexic and you worry about these behaviours, the root cause might be because they are dyslexic. And what you have to do is to unpeel that onion. You've really got to get down to the root cause. Put the correct support in, and those, if there are any of those poor behaviours, will be improved. So you might be sitting there thinking, okay, that makes sense. What do I do though? How do I support them? Because very often, the students are asked to write their knowledge. Okay, so what we need to do is to think outside of the box, just like a dyslexic might. We need to remember as well, the first thing is that they need to be able to focus. They need as much multisensory learning as possible, and it means connecting the auditory, the kinesthetic, and the visual together. What I mean by that is, for example, if they are writing something down or if they're doing a spelling or something, they say it out loud, which is connecting it. They'll be able to hear those sounds. If they are learning a sequence, cut the sequence up, have them put it in the correct sequence. It could be the sequence of Macbeth. It could be the sequence of a science experiment. But each of these stages, give them an image and a visual, and then ask them to reconstruct the correct sequence. Things like that. That's just a couple of examples of those multisensory layers. When they are working, they need to be able to focus. If there is a possibility somewhere, a private space to focus, maybe in a school library or at home, even on a one-to-one basis if there is the staff available. It might be that they prefer to work in the local library on the high street. If when they are learning, it's important as well to keep that those bursts of learning or writing short. We got to remember they are working so hard, their brains are going to become exhausted very, very quickly. And so short bursts. And if they're, checking the work, they do the work, they go away, go and play basketball for 5-10 minutes, come back and they see it in a fresh light. And so they're able to have these short bursts. It will work so much better for them. So alternatives to writing then. Most homework and classwork tasks involve writing, don't they? And this is the thing that is particularly difficult for dyslexic learners. They haven't got that word finding ability efficiently. They're not able to do that as quickly as other people. And so when they are writing, not only are it might be that their vocabulary is very reduced, the spelling reduces the number of words that they are able to use. They may not have had an awful lot of experience with books, and so they might not understand what the genre means. All of these, they've not been exposed to all of that rich vocabulary by reading the same as their peers, then writing is going to be particularly difficult for them. So what we need to be able to do as teaching staff, you still need to collect the evidence of their knowledge, don't you? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some ideas, some different ideas, to be able to put it to them, which ways of these are you going to be comfortable with? So let's have a look at some alternative ideas. This is one company that I've found, and it helps with inspiring children to draw their knowledge instead of writing. There are, of course, other companies out there that's like this, but this is just one example. This is called Deco Comics. And what you can do with this is you can learn the same information, but in a visual. Um, and they offer, it's one thing that I always remember seeing is they were talking about the carbon footprint in one of the comics. And so the image was the world, and on top of it was a black cloud in the shape of a foot, and it was stomping on the earth. And so it's that kind of imagery that really, really helps them to understand what it is rather than a lot of text. So Deco comics and other kind of comic books, they come in this comic strip format. It's very, very visual. It allows that creativity and the ability to showcase what they know. If they're very good at art as well, coupled with this, it's going to be a really good way for them to demonstrate to you what their knowledge in whichever lesson it is. And so, of course, you can download these kind of comic strips very freely on the internet. There will be software that you can download, or what's the word I'm looking for? A website that you might be able to follow. But, if you're giving this to the whole class, you're not going to be singling out one person. You'll be giving it to the whole class, and you'll be able to find then who is very good at demonstrating what they know through pictures and images. And so that's just the first idea that you might want to give them. Podcasts are very, very popular at the moment. And introducing audio clips is quite a new concept, really, for some teaching staff and schools. It might be that your learners are able to verbally tell you their knowledge instead of writing. And so it's just one way of being able to gather evidence. We're living in a digital age now. The introduction of these kind of transcription services is very commonplace in the world of work. And so what we will be doing is we will be nurturing these skills to prepare them for adulthood. And so it might be that they find a software that they can talk into. It will transcribe everything that they say. And instead of having to write, which is very painful sometimes for them, they are able then to find the right words and then hand the transcription into teacher as evidence. So yeah, audio clips, podcasts, that type of thing. So let's say you have that audio clip, you can send it digitally. A lot of schools I know now use things like Google Classroom. You're able to do that really easy on Google Classroom. Same with Teams. All of these digital platforms, you will be able to transfer audio clips really easily. But it's not just for the learner to be able to use these. The teaching staff can also feed back using things like audio clips or the snipping tool to try to record something on a screen if if that is something that if they've handed in a document for you to mark for them. All of these different things. It's not just audio clips. It might be a snapshot of the feedback, and so you can transfer this knowledge. Consequently, they don't have to read anything that might be difficult for them to read, and they'll get the proper feedback then. I'm just going to click this, but I'm going to go past it. Oh, there you go. It's not played. So transcription then of audio clips. They will transcribe what you speak. Very often you'll have them on a notes page on a mobile phone. They're using it more and more now to send text messages. All of these accessibility functions are already built into them. I know that they're not allowed to use mobile phones in school. However, in their own free time, they may want to use it to help them to get everything that's out of their head onto something so that they don't forget. It could be that they use that as a mind dump. I used to try and encourage my kids to mind dump, and it's just whatever is in their head in whichever order you dump it out. You can use voice clips, you can use sticky notes, all of these different things just to mind dump everything. That's the first phase of planning, isn't it, for an answer? Or it might be that you put a note in the margin of what it is that you need to write about to answer a question. All of these different kinds of things. They're easy enough now to be printed or emailed to the school as evidence of the work that they need to complete. It could be that it's insisted that they handwrite into their books. But again, you can use the icon, this icon to be able to just talk their ideas into the notes page. And once you've had it read back, you can click on the read aloud and then copy it into your textbook. It might be that, they do have, a very good handwriting and writing skills, but they just forget what it is that they want to say. And so use this kind of technology, it's just as a mind dump, and to be able to remind them of what it is that they have to write about. It might be that they are very good at presenting. They would feel confident in front of an audience. They might be happy to create a presentation and to demonstrate their knowledge that way. And also they might want to become the teacher. And if you know that they can teach somebody else, you've cracked it. Because what they're doing is the information that you've taught them, they're able to digest it and to process it and to teach somebody else. And so if this is the case, encourage it. Sometimes they just need an image to trigger their knowledge. They're allowed then to freestyle with what they know. And it helps them with their social skills, their confidence, their public speaking skills. I know quite a lot of students who went into drama and dance because that's, where they feel comfortable on the stage in front of an audience. So if that is the case, then tap into that because they will have a fantastic skill. It could be that they are very good at creating things and making things. This is just an example of a Motte and Bailey castle from what they learn in primary school, but this could be for anything. Ask them to, whatever they've built, ask them to talk about it, the different features of it, how they made it, why was it made like that. This can be your evidence of knowledge. Record it, get them to record an audio clip and transcribe it. All of these different things, you can do it. You're still gathering that evidence to be able to demonstrate that they are making progress. There's going to be some whiz kids out there on the computers that are very good at computer-aided design. Are they very talented at the computers? And if so, get them to demonstrate their knowledge using this kind of medium. It's part of life now, isn't it? When it was my generation, we didn't have any of this. It's just second nature to them. Allow them to be able to demonstrate their knowledge in this way, if that is how they prefer to do it. Again, we're tapping into the skills that they do have. And easy animations. This is something called Pivot Animator. I used to have this in the school that I went into, I worked at, and it was, some of the kids were absolutely amazing at demonstrating knowledge via an animation. And it's yet another way of giving them a homework task that is accessible to them. What happens in the water cycle? What happens in Macbeth? All of these different types of things. If this is their thing, then they will be very skilled and they may be able to use this kind of way of communication to demonstrate their knowledge. Now, the internet says that this is free to download, but I haven't used it myself. I'm not sure if you might need to upgrade for any kind of special effects. So what I want to do now very quickly is go through how the BDA can help. Nikki's very kindly reminded us of some of the things that is available from the BDA, but I just want to say that our website is a brilliant resource. If you do need any help accessing it, then we have this icon here, and when you click on that on the website, it opens up to a whole accessibility function. So you can change the background, the font, you can have it read aloud, magnify it, all of those different types of things. So have a look on that. It gives you lots of information about dyslexia and dyscalculia, and anything else that is associated with us. We do have a helpline. If you can call us during the day, then please do. These this helpline is mostly operated by our volunteers, and they are all experts in the field. And so we're able to at least be able to, at the very least, to signpost you to somebody else who is in the organisation. But we should be able to give you some fantastic advice if you call up. If you're not able to call, then you can email us and use our social media platforms as well. Again, these are all operated by our volunteers. It might be that you need an assessment for your child. Please do get in touch with us. If you apply for one wherever you are in the country, then we will be able to find somebody who's close to you. We make sure as well that they have the appropriate qualifications, and all of the paperwork is all up to date. So you will be guaranteed a quality assessment. For those of you who are in schools, you might want to consider holding the BDA Dyslexia Friendly Quality Mark. This is a really positive statement that tells everybody that your school is a very good place for dyslexic learners, not just for the individuals, for the children, but for the staff as well. And it helps with that understanding to make sure that everybody understands the needs of the dyslexic learner. It will help you make sure that you have the correct resources. In turn, it's going to lead to greater levels of achievement for everybody. And so this stamp is only awarded to those of you who are able to demonstrate that they provide that really high quality education for all. If you're looking to become a specialist in the field, then we do have some fantastic courses available. We've got level 5 and level 7. So level 5 will be a dyslexia specialist tutor, or for dyscalculia as well. And then the level 7 will be to assess and diagnose dyslexia or dyscalculia as well. And what you can do is, depending on where you were from, are you a parent, are you school, are you a professional, you can filter which courses are appropriate for you. Of course, assessments aren't free. They do need to be paid for. We at the BDA are really hoping to raise some money for an assessment bursary. And here you can see the QR code for this. It's really important that we help provide assistance for schools and parents and everybody who needs an assessment so that they can get the right support. It's really important. And so we believe that everybody should be entitled to an assessment to be able to get the right support. And if you would like to, be a volunteer as well. We have our local dyslexia associations and hubs up and down the country. You very welcome to join the nearest one to you. But if you feel that there's something missing in your area, then please do get in touch as well, because we are looking to open up lots and lots of them all up and down the country. And we all would need that support, and it's always really good to talk. And so I'm there at the end, Nikki. I'm just wondering if we have any questions.
We do. Thank you, Amanda. That was really lovely. Some great advice there and lots of messages thanking you for your help. We do have some questions, and like you say, we've got about 6 or 7 minutes, so let's try and get through a few. So we've got somebody asking, what's the youngest a child can be assessed?
We would say about 7 or 8. It used to be, 7. COVID has kind of changed the dynamics now. So as long as we feel that the child will be able to cope with the diagnostic assessments, then I'd say about 7 or 8. you can't get a diagnosis before that because a child hasn't developed enough and they're not able to cope with the testing. So there are screeners out there that you might want to have a look at, and they will just give you a probability of whether the child has got dyslexia or not. But a full diagnostic assessment, I'd probably say I would recommend probably from about age 8, definitely.
Brilliant, thank you. I've got somebody saying, I am a retired optometrist, but still assessed for visual stress, which is associated with many forms of neurodiversity, should I say. How much benefit have you found from using coloured filters or lenses if with a dyslexic learner?
Well, the visual stress, or it sometimes referred to as visual difficulties or scotopic sensitivity or Mears-Irling syndrome, that is a condition in its own right. But it does often co-occur with dyslexia, which is why there's this overlap, really. And you can be dyslexic and not have visual difficulties. So when it was a few years back, it was assumed that if you were dyslexic you were given a blue overlay and that will solve everything. It's not the case. They the overlays will be able to deal with that visual difficulty in itself. Dyslexia is something very different. It's that phonological awareness, the verbal memory, and the verbal processing speed. So it's just kind of one layer. It's a co-occurring difficulty.
Brilliant, thank you. You mentioned about meeting with a school Senko. I've got somebody asking, how often would you advise the meet with the Senkos? Is it something you just do at the beginning of the year and
I
hope for the
would
best, or should they start sort of touching in place with them all the time? Should they call in?
It depends on the individual and the schools, really. It's a bit of it's a very grey area. I couldn't say you need to have at least 3 meetings a year. Go and meet, particularly if they are moving into year 7. Go and meet the Senko, talk to about your child to them, get to meet the teaching staff. It might be that you don't need to go and meet very often because the support is already there. But if you do feel that they're starting to struggle, they're not being understood, maybe go in again and ask to have a meeting with them. You might not need a face-to-face meeting. You might just need a bit of a Teams meeting or a phone call, just to raise your concerns. But yes, definitely, be mindful of the experience of your child and follow on from that, really.
Brilliant, thanks, Amanda. Um, the writing alternatives you gave examples of, do you know if they can be used in exam settings?
So they will need to be assessed for access arrangements. And depending on the technology that the school has got, you can request a digital exam for some exams. And which means that you might be able to use a keyboard or speech to text technology. It's very similar to having a scribe, isn't it? I used to be a scribe in my exams in my school, and the child would tell me the sentences that they wanted me to write, and I would have to write it for them. And it instead of having that member of staff sat next to them, they're able to do it independently. And they're able to send in a digital copy. But again, it's about what facilities is available in the school. That not all schools are the same. Some are very, very switched on with technology, and others just don't have the right number of computers. So you would be able to you'd have to talk to the Senko about that.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got somebody that's saying that their Senko is advising that a 3-year-old dyslexia assessment report is now out of date and invalid. Is this correct? The child is now 15.
No, the dyslexia assessment is it's a diagnosis for life. Um, it used to be a few years ago that they would have to have it reassessed, but that has gone now. That diagnosis is there for life. What they may be referring to is the access arrangements for the exams. It might be that the support and the strategies that have been recommended have changed or the child has developed and it is a little bit out of date. But the actual diagnosis itself is always there.
Brilliant, thank you. And we do get asked that quite a lot, don't we? Because people think that if they had it done as a child and they're now an adult, do they need to have it redone? That's great, thank you. We are out of time, but I will just say we have had a lot of questions tonight about EHCP EHCPs. Claudia, I know, has put a link in the chat to some resources on our website. We will include that in the follow-up email as well. So if you didn't have time to click on the link, you'll have time to go back and have a look. But there's a lot of information on the website about how to navigate those, because I know it's probably difficult for Amanda to answer individual questions on those. It does depend on the individual and the school and how far down the process you are. I know some people are commenting there's lots of waiting lists and things like that, but hopefully with some of the advice that you've shared tonight, there's other things they can do with the school while they're waiting or while they're navigating the system or trying to get other support. So that's great. Thank you so much, Amanda. I did just want to remind everybody that we do run webinars all the time. So do please keep an eye on the website, or if you've signed up to the newsletter, you'll get reminders. The next one we are doing, if you're a dyslexic adult, we're actually doing a support webinar on the 10th, I believe it is the 10th of December, to help adults in the workplace. So you might find that benefit too. And there are lots of webinars on our YouTube channel as well. So if you want some support on revision plans or times tables or how to teach spellings or all those different things, there's lots of resources on the YouTube channel as well as the website. So I just want to say thank you so much, Amanda. That was really, really helpful. As I say, lots of thank yous, and you can see all the hearts and the thumbs up. I know you love your hearts.
Reactions.
And thank you, Claudia, in the background for doing all the links and everything else. Really appreciated. And we will leave you. It's 8 o'clock. We will leave you to enjoy your evening. We hopefully see you on another webinar soon.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Take care.
Take care.